my name is Kathrin Zenkina, and I am the CEO and founder of Manifestation Babe, which is my platform, my brand, my company, my movement that inspires women all across the world to manifest their best lives. I am the host of the top 3 podcast, Manifestation Babe, which Makhosi has appeared on now twice. Hopefully soon, 3rd time.
Yeah.
And I'm also a number 1 Amazon bestselling author. That's pretty much it.
All right. Well, yeah, you have an impressive, incredible list, especially because, you're just getting started. Like, you still have so much life ahead of you.
I'm so excited about that.
Yes. So let's dig in a little bit to what were you struggling with when you decided to work with me?
Yeah, I would say this struggle that I'm going to bring up started around 2018, around the beginning of 2018. And I specifically remember a time in January when I woke up and I just didn't really want to do what I was doing. Like, I absolutely loved my audience. I loved the content that I was sharing. I loved everything about it, but for some reason, it wasn't lighting me up anymore. And that was a very, very scary feeling of just like, wait a second, this was my purpose for the last 2 years. This is something that I could just see blowing up to being this like $100 million company. And I had all the energy in the world to make all these videos and courses, and I just couldn't shut up about what I was doing. And all of a sudden, I just want to get rid of it. And that was a very, very scary feeling for me, especially since I've only been running my business for 2 years, and the success that it had, there was so much momentum going for me that I couldn't just stop. But my soul kept telling me, and I'll never forget, looking outside the window, because at this time, I'm nowhere near as intuitive as I am today. But back then I was semi-intuitive, and I got this like message when I was looking out the window, which said, Kathrin, there's more out there for you. There's so much more out there for you. You've barely scratched the surface. And that actually became like the motto of Manifestation Babe. It used to be on my website for the longest time, ever since that came to me. And so, I overcame that feeling to an extent, but I still felt like there's just something more out there for me, and I couldn't really pick up on what it was. And so anyway, I've been dealing with this feeling for quite a while. And the very first time that I brought Makhosi on my podcast, she was talking about something called the void. And the way that she described it, I remember looking at her with, at this time, no intention of hiring her. I haven't even looked at her packages. I didn't know what she was doing. I just really loved her message. I came across Makhosi through a program called Business by Design. And she came on one of my mentors' podcasts. And I remember listening to her message and being like, oh my God, she's a shaman. I want to interview a shaman. I've never brought a shaman on my podcast. So she came on the podcast, loved the conversation. And my soul immediately was like, you need to work with Makhosi. You need to work with Makhosi. You need to ask her how to work with her. I didn't even know what she did. And I was like, you need to work with Makhosi. And the way that she described like this thing called the void, I was like, Makhosi, I've been in that for so long. How the hell do I get out of it? And she was telling me how like that's literally who she loves to work with the most, is these people that are going through this very strong, very deep evolution and growth on a soul level. And that can come with its challenges, and that comes with its struggles. And most people, they don't go through the void correctly. They tend to retreat from it. So I was kind of at this point where I was like, I want to retreat. I don't know if I want to do this anymore, but like, I love it at the same time. And I love my people. And this is very confusing. And so I hired Makhosi. And what question am I answering again?
What you were struggling with, but you're now moving into,
okay,
what has transformed for you.
Yes.
What measurable changes have you had, and also just in general, how has your life changed?
Okay, cool. So that's what I do. I just answer all the questions in one question. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I talked to Makhosi about what it would be like working with her, and I knew that I needed someone one-on-one. Like, I just knew that I needed someone to help guide me, because I felt like I was literally going crazy. And so I hired her, And initially, we started with an activation, an initiation that we did, and really connecting to the next level and spirit guides and ancestors and all that good stuff. And instantly, I felt like I had a spiritual older sister from a past life who came back here to help guide me. And there was like this instant, strong connection of just love and wisdom. And I like can't even describe it. It just felt like I found a home before I even recognized like why we're truly working together. And so it was amazing to ask her any question. She's like literally a walking Google, like of the spirit world. Like you can ask her any question and she has an answer. Of course, when it relates to you and something that you need to find the answer about yourself, she's never going to give you that answer because you have to do your own work. So it's not like working with a magician that just does the work for you. But it's just been incredible to be like, Makhosi, why is this happening? And having her be able to tap into these dimensions far beyond anything that we can see and pull in guidance that is literally designed for me. And everything that comes out of her mouth is a message that I so needed in order to feel rooted, in order to feel grounded into who I am, what I'm here to do, and what the next level is for me. And since working with Makhosi, there was an intention that I set 2 years ago. It was actually in 2018 when I first stepped into this thing called the void, where I really wanted to manifest $1 million launch. And I remember asking the universe, and I'm a pretty great manifester, but for some reason, it was like every single launch, $1 million launch. Thank you for my $1 million launch. Thank you for my $1 million launch. And what would end up happening is I would, of course, I would go from a $500,000 launch to a $600,000 launch when I set that intention, which is awesome. Like an additional 6 figures on top of what I had last time is great. But then for the next 5 to 6 launches, it was like a ceiling, just kept hitting the ceiling, 600K, 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 600K. And it became very, very frustrating for me. Like, what am I not getting here? And I knew, thank God, that it wasn't a strategy that I needed. It wasn't a mindset. It wasn't like I had limiting beliefs about money. Like I just knew that it was part of my destiny. And so since working with Makhosi, from all of the shamanic initiations and activations and her doing a lot of this incredible stuff that, of course, we here in the 3D don't really understand. Sometimes it looks like Makhosi's not really doing anything, but she is, and she's bringing in all of this energy into your sphere to help you up level, to help you grow, to help accelerate the process of evolution. And to show you blind spots, like being able to have a guide who says, hey, you might want to look at this, or I can tell her a dream and she'll be like, oh yeah, you might want to look at this, and download after download after download after download. Finally, I felt like the puzzle pieces were coming together. And my last launch, which happened in August, just a couple months ago, not only did I hit $1 million launch, it was almost $1 million day. Like I will never forget. And I remember Makhosi saying like, hey, like get ready. Like there's some really good shit coming your way. And I'm like, okay. And I remember at this time I was dealing with like an entity in my apartment, and I was dealing with some spirit that came to visit me in Sedona, and she was like teaching me exactly how to give offerings to them. And it was just like, there's so much happening at once. And I would have these crazy dreams and I'm like, oh my God. And I remember starting to get into my head around this launch, because again, I was like, what if it's another $600,000 launch, which of course I'm so grateful for. But I really wanted to hit that goal. And so anyway, the cart opened and it was like freaking crazy. We hit, I think, almost $800,000 in the first day. By day 2, I think 36 hours in, it was $1 million. And then it kept going. And I remember Makhosi voxing me and just be like, hey, it's going to be way more than $1 million. Like, just watch. And I'm like, okay, cool. And so it ended up being a $1.85 million launch. And it was just like unbelievable just to see that number, because that number didn't just represent a number. It wasn't just money. It wasn't just, oh, great, I can buy more things. Like, it just showed me that I was capable of anything, and that my potential truly is limitless. And that even though I'm going through this thing called the void, where I'm evolving and growing into the next evolution of myself, it doesn't mean I have to suffer through it. And that's something I'm so grateful to Makhosi for, is that she showed me that I could do it with joy. I could do it with grace. I could do it with ease. I don't always have to have clarity. I can manifest on the soul level, which is where you come into this place where your higher self is essentially doing the manifesting for you and has your best interests at heart. And you get to have fun the whole way through. And sure, there's going to be ups and downs, because we're all human beings. We have ups and downs. But what that showed me was like a next level certainty and a next level confidence that I have everything within me to be ridiculously successful. I wanted to mention something that just popped up, is that, you know, in our society, we really put a lot of value on like the action takers and the people who work in the 3D physical world. And so we very much encourage people, you know, people in sports, they're taught and encouraged to get a coach, right? Everyone has a coach. Everyone has a therapist or of some sort, like physical therapist or a therapist for your mental health or whatever it is. Like, we are encouraged to get guides for our emotional level, for our mental level, for physical level. But something that is so undermined is the energetic and the spiritual level. And what I want to tell people, and what I really want to encourage people, is just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not real. In fact, the spiritual world is more real than this 3D physical world that is simply a projection of the cosmic mind. And I just want to encourage everybody to get a spiritual guide, to get a shaman, to get someone who actually knows what they're talking about. Someone who doesn't just call themselves a shaman, someone who isn't just pretending to work with spirits and know what they're doing on the energetic world, but someone that actually is creating ripple effects for themselves and for all the people that they help, and someone who has their purest intentions in this, and someone who has a huge heart, someone who is really here to help the world heal. So if you have the opportunity to work with Makhosi, like, jump on it, please. Like, the world needs more healing, and she's just so incredible. Did want to add is a huge thing that's been different in terms of my own spiritual practices is that here in the West, so it's very, very common, unfortunately, for us to not honor our ancestors and not know who our ancestors are, and not know how to feed them, not know how to do ceremonies for them, not know how to thank them and how to honor them and all of those incredible things. So something that has really come up in my work with Makhosi is, of course, getting your ancestors on board with assisting you, and the fact that there's so many of them. And here in the West, like, even in the spiritual community, we hear about spirit guides, right? We hear about shamans, we hear about God, we hear about the universe, we hear about all these other divinities, and we often forget our ancestors. And ever since Makhosi and I met in person to do our 3-day intensive, and when we finally did this ritual to feed my ancestors, first of all, they're very hungry. And Makhosi said that they haven't been fed in 1,500 years. Like, yeah, it's a long time. I've just never felt more supported. Like, I feel so much stability and so much guidance. And I just feel like there's this unconditional love that surrounds me, and that I have nothing to worry about, because there's literally so much support in the non-physical that is assisting me right now with creating anything that I want, anything that I desire in the physical realm. So I just wanted to mention that.